All right, everybody. Welcome to Week 16 edition of Hot Takes and Hot Cakes. We're coming down to the wire here, second to last week of the NFL season. I'm joined here by my good friend Dan. How are you doing this morning, Dan?
Good, Matt. I'm in one more. I was in two main leagues this year. I did a third one for fun with a few friends, but joined two main ones, and I'm in the finals of one of them, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Did you make it to any finals in your leagues this year?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I will admit that it was not the best year for season-long leagues. I definitely think this was hey, you need to cut back reminder for next.
I always try to get the best max. To me, the max is like 3, but I would prefer just 2. Honestly, with all the daily that we do now too, and all the work we do outside of this that not related to our own teams, like it's too much, and there's too much conflict then on the day, like who to root for and shit like that.
Yeah, it really is, and it was a big problem for me, especially like joining writer leagues and stuff this year. Like,
yep.
Yeah, that was, which is like definitely I want to do that again next year, at least a few of them. But like. You just aren't able to dedicate like the time that you need to for a season long, especially because both of us have, real jobs, and then we do all this stuff for football, and then there's managing our own teams, then there's daily. It's like, God, how can you dedicate the time needed to like a season long league where you have to make waiver claims, especially like because I did so much zero running back this year that like that's a strategy you have to pay attention to the waiver wire. You have to like be constantly cycling in these backup running backs. So like a lot of like my one main football guys league is our team. I'm the worst in that league, which is so embarrassing. Like I have the worst record. I still have like Christine Michael on my roster. I'm like, what? Oh my God! Like I just was not able to dedicate the time. So yeah, no finals for me this year. My best team lost last week, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, whatever. Yeah, definitely. Daily, still got that going on. If you're not in any championships like me, we're still gonna eat. We don't have any TJ this week, unfortunately. Podcast got a lot less handsome with that move, and also definitely gonna. Dan and I will try to pull together some DFS stuff to talk about because people definitely still want to know about that. But without any further ado, I do want to get your thoughts on one thing before we get rolling here. How do you feel about Jay Cutler, and just what are your thoughts with that in general? Like what the Bears did, are you cool with it? And just for fun here, before we get started, where do you think Jay Cutler is going to play next year?
So a few things on this. First of all, I think what the Bears did was just stupid. You don't bench Cutler with 2 games to go. There's not enough to gain with how much you lose, especially for a guy like Cutler who has a psyche that's very fragile. Because the fact of the matter is, by benching him like this with 2 games to go, it screws up his whole, opinion. It just really messes up his standing there in Chicago, and it paints him, it backs him into a corner because now they pretty much have to get rid of him. If they keep him and try to roll into next season again with Cutler, it's all weird because they decided to bench him for the final 2 games for no real reason. Clausen doesn't need practice reps. Clausen's not going anywhere. He's not going to become an NFL quarterback, so there's just nothing to gain. Like, coaches will say, I'm just trying to win at this point, but it's debatable that he'll give a better chance of winning Cutler because Cutler's still a 28 to 18 TD and interception ratio this year. He was through for a decent amount of yards. He wasn't that bad. He had some good games, especially when you consider the injuries to Brandon Marshall and the guys on their offensive line, which was really the key downfall this Bears season. Last season they were really good in pass protection. This season they were horrible in pass protection. It's just like the downfall of every team's season, and then things always seem to get pinned on the quarterback. But going forward, I'm not a huge Cutler fan just because he doesn't, and this is going to sound very narrative, but to me it's the only position where it actually matters. He doesn't have the it factor to me. There's too many times I see him make a bad play and then put his head down or like start to yell at his teammates, yell at people on the sidelines, come back to the huddle, just like head all down. Like you have to really learn how to forget about the last play at the quarterback position. Otherwise, you bring the whole team down and the whole 11 men in the huddle, and just like it screws up the whole offense when you're playing like that. And I really, it sounds like a narrative because he does have all the tools to be a great NFL quarterback, but he just is too, when things aren't going well, he's too down. But you know what? If you put him on a great team with a great offensive line, he can really, I think he can win a Super Bowl. When things are going right with him,
I agree.
with Jay Cutler, he has his head up and he's not acting like an asshole like last year. And last year's a good example of when he was like, things were going well. They would have went really far in the playoffs if they had a defense last year. So I just think it could be done now in Chicago when it didn't have to be, just because they decided to bench him for Jimmy Clausen. What are your thoughts on it, Matt?
Well, first things first. Let me just talk about Jimmy Clausen real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I told this story on the Fantasy Game Plan, the podcast I do on Wednesdays, but I'll tell it again. Clausen is like personally responsible for my downfall as a Panthers fan. Because as a young impressionable boy, I loved the team. I was like a true diehard fan, and then especially that playoff run where they had double trouble, and I was like a senior in high school. That was so cool. Until they got smacked around by the Cardinals in the playoffs, that wasn't so cool. But anyway, so the first Panthers game that I ever got to go to live, because I live up by DC, I don't live in Charlotte. So my parents gave me tickets for my birthday. My dad came. So that was back in August, and then I had to wait all this time until October to go to the game. So I sit, and this was during the Jimmy Clausen game. So this was when they started 0-5, and it was the year that Peppers had gone to the Bears. So they came down, and the Bears just kicked the shit out of the Panthers. I mean, it was just the worst thing I've ever had to watch. And I'm sitting there watching Jimmy Clausen just airmail touchdown, airmail passes, and just be a timid little baby in the pocket, and it was so bad. I mean, it was just the worst football I've ever seen. And this was I'm just sitting there, and I'm why do I care about this? Why am I here? Why was this what I wanted to do? It just, and not to mention I sat next to this big fat Bears fan who just the whole time was like, oh yeah, I'm so happy, talking to his girlfriend, talking to his girlfriend, oh baby, I'm so happy, and just so that killed it. That was the beginning of the downfall to where I am now, as that I could really care less. But anyways, nobody cares about that story, but I think it's funny. Clausen is terrible, and he will always be terrible in my mind. And if he's ever not terrible, then I will probably have to go wandering in the wilderness to find myself again. But anyway, so yeah, it's not. I don't think that. I mean, there's no upside to benching Cutler, and it does kind of say that the only reason I feel like they would do it is kind of for Trestman to say hey, it's me. I mean, it's him, not me. That's what I feel like. And as far as what they're going to do with Cutler next year, I mean, they pretty much have to unload him now at this point. I don't think you can kind of go back unless you play him next week and he kind of ends the season on a high note, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But so where is he going to go, I guess, is my question. If he's, I just because it's kind of fun to think about. I could, a few teams that need a quarterback, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, no way. I don't see him getting, especially with Lovey in Tampa Bay, I don't see him getting along with those coaching staffs. Jeff Fisher's supposed to really like him. I love that fit in St. Louis because he seems like he'd be kind of the last piece there, or maybe in Buffalo. I don't know. Somebody brought up Houston as a potential landing spot, and I'm I cannot see J.J. Watt and Jay Cutler ever getting along. J.J. Watt would just beat the shit out of Cutler the moment he did that. Smoking cigarettes while you're playing? I don't. So anyways. It's just fun to think about. I kind of want your takes on that.
He's definitely got talent, and I mean, it really just depends. And the thing is, you mentioned it when you were talking about the Panthers just now, and when you were a really big fan, and you went to that game, and it was just pathetic. Because when you're one of these teams that hasn't found a quarterback for a while, and this is why I always get on every single Giants fan who tries to tell me oh, it's time to trade or cut Eli Manning, because who, by the way, Matt, let me mention, has a 26-13 touchdown interception ratio this year, thrown for a lot of yards, thrown the ball really well, given the fact that he's lost all of his receivers basically, and his offensive line has gotten injured and sucks. Let's just add that in. Anyway,
helps to have Odell Beckham.
Yeah, he has Odell Beckham, but nothing else. He has Odell Beckham, but nothing else. Basically nothing else.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
But anyway. But the point is, like, when you don't find a quarterback for a while and you're one of these franchises and you're one of these fans, you start to get antsy because you can have seasons like the Clausen season, like even just like this season, like the Bortles season. Like, I did decide to watch some of that, pretty much all of that Jaguars-Titans game for some odd reason. I have no idea why I decided to sit down for that disgusting, pathetic football. But Bortles is one of the worst quarterbacks I've seen in a long time. Like, did you watch that game, Benj? Have you seen any Bortles? It was the first full Bortles game I had seen. To be honest.
I really wanted to sit down and watch it, and I actually heard it was slightly entertaining just for how fun
it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but I had to go pick my dog up from the groomers, so
it's a much better thing you can do.
Yeah, but so I missed it, but I really wanted to see Bortles because I haven't really got a chance to sit down and watch him.
Oh, and he's bad. He reminds me a lot of Blaine Gabbert, sadly, in the fact that he just has zero pocket presence and zero clue what to do out there. But anyway, the point is when you have these quarterbacks, like it just you get antsy, and if you can, and that's why it's going to be cool because Cutler has a chance to do good if you put the right pieces around him. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes if he goes anywhere. He still stay with the Bears because the way his salary, the way his contract's set up, it's really tough to move him.
Yeah, no doubt. Cutler is still one of the best 20 quarterbacks in the league. No doubt about it. I would still rather have Cutler than a guy like Andy Dalton.
How about Alex Smith?
That's a tough one, and I feel like I would rather have Cutler. I don't know because I feel like they're almost two completely different players. Like they play the game so they play the quarterback so differently. I feel like they're almost, which is it's why I always try to typologically categorize quarterbacks because it's impossible to compare. Like you could never ask Jay Cutler to be in the offense that Alex Smith is in, and you could never ask
you're right.
Alex Smith to do the same things that Cutler can do. So I don't know. I'm kind of copping out here. I feel like I would rather have Cutler if I could set things up perfectly.
Yeah.
But that's really hard to do. But Alex Smith kind of has things set up perfectly, so I don't know.
Yeah, he does.
It's not an answer.
Well, he doesn't have any receivers, but that's...
Yeah, but he doesn't throw the ball downfield anyway, so I don't... Even if they had a receiver, I don't even know...
It would help to have some receivers there. That's the worst receiving corps in the league by far.
Yeah, totally. It's not good at all. But I still...
You gotta have somebody make plays after the catch, I feel like, even if they're short passes.
Yeah, I hear you. I still think Dwayne Bowe is not a bad player. He would definitely put up better numbers elsewhere.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah, but I think we've exhausted this subject, and we can move on to the questions.
Sorry, there's something ridiculous going on behind me right now in my apartment.
I was going to say, are you in a bathroom? Are you doing this podcast from a bathroom?
No, I'm doing it in my living room. So just to give the listeners the watchers a little update, I'm doing my living room, but it's set up like where near my kitchen is because it's a New York City apartment and you don't have any space and you don't have a real kitchen. So my roommate just woke up and he's just in his boxer. So instead of being on the screen half naked again, he crawled across the floor so we wouldn't see him on the show. It was one of the most. It was like Spider-Man. It was impressive as hell. He did it really quick and fast. He really, in my opinion, he might be able to be better than half those Chiefs receivers right now if you threw him out there on the field. But that's for another day. Anyway,
that's interesting thing there.
All right, let's get into some actual talk.
Yeah, I'm glad that you stalled though, because my tweet deck was freezing.
Oh, good.
All right, so here we go. Let's go down with the questions that you sent me first. This comes from @IrishBrett72. Since there's no T.Y. Hilton this week, should I start Doug Baldwin or Larry Donnell? You want to answer this one first, because this is gross.
It's a rough question.
Yeah, neither. I really don't want to.
I'd love to see your waiver wire first of all, and if you have a guy like Charles Johnson is still sitting there for some reason, I'd play him. Who else are guys that I'd like to play? Are there any other waiver guys? I'm trying to think. If Harry Douglas is still there and Julio sits, I'd play him. But if you're forced with these two, I would go with Baldwin just because I don't think the Giants' offense is going to move the ball that well this week. If you look at the Giants' worst game of the season, it came against the Lions. And the Lions were able to get interior pressure against J.D. Walton, who's a center for the Giants, who shouldn't be in the NFL, but he is. And they have issues at both guard spots. And then you're going against Aaron Donald, who's probably the best defensive tackle in the league, as crazy as it is to say right now, especially with Gerald McCoy now out. So that's going to be an issue. Rams are at home. I don't think the Giants' offense will move the ball that well. I think Donnell will have a real bad game. So I would go with Baldwin just based on that. But look at your waiver wire, and if you have any interesting guys on the waiver wire, feel free to tweet me or Matt, and we'll tweet you who to pick up before the game starts.
Yeah, and you mentioned Harry Douglas as a potential replacement, but it does look like Julio Jones is going to
play. Yep.
Yeah, he's going to play through a hip injury, which, by the way, like when these things happen, I feel like that's like the worst possible outcome because it doesn't give us Douglas to use as like a streaming option or in DFS. Like I'm going to have to go through and take him out of. I think I have him in a.
I had him in too. Yep, me too.
But anyway, so that's that. I mean, there's going to be some rough decisions like that this week. So just push through them. Feel free to send Dan and I questions on Twitter even after the show. Will T.Y. Hilton be a factor this weekend? No, he probably won't. Is it for sure he's not going to play? That is for sure at this point, right?
Yeah, I think it's for sure. I have to look at it right now.
Either way, I wouldn't use Hilton this week. I mean, it's just it's too rough. But anyways,
so he's a long shot to play according to the most recent report.
Okay, and so with Hilton not being a factor, and this comes in. I'm sorry, this comes in from Don Treyas. I'm gonna go with that. So with Hilton not being, yeah, right. With Hilton not being a factor this weekend, should I start LaFell? And LaFell is also intimately linked to my Panthers sadness. So this comes with no bias when I tell you definitely start LaFell. I love LaFell this week. With Edelman being out, because he's not going to play in that Jets game, I think that I don't think that it's going to help. That makes a huge difference with LaFell. I was talking about this with Mike Clay and a few other people on Twitter yesterday. Some of them were saying that Amendola could actually get a little bit of boost, but that's not a player I'd recommend playing. But like LaFell, I was already high on because the Jets have just a terrible secondary. He's got to at least, you would think logically that he's going to get a few nice catches. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later. It's really going to be all the Gronk this week. All of the Gronk, but I think LaFell picks up a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I think Matt hit this one on the head here, so I don't have too much more to add to that, Contreras. But good question, Danny, and good luck in your finals. That's actually one of my brother's best friends, so I know the kid.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, he should start LaFell.
There you go.
Next question comes in from Marvelous Marv. I need a sleeper running back this week. You have any good ones? I was thinking Steven Jackson or Jonathan Stewart. Out of the two, I like Stewart more than Jackson. I mean, with Jackson, you're just like you're hoping that he scores a touchdown. Otherwise, I think you've mentioned this plenty of times on the show. With Jackson, you're basically just hoping he pops in that goal line touchdown, and he definitely could this week. And it should be a lot of points back and forth, two really bad defenses, but. I just like Stewart more. He's the primary ball carrier right now. Cleveland has some breakdowns against the run, and I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot with Cam Newton playing. But I mean, he cannot possibly be like his usual self after his car flipping over like 5 times or whatever a couple of days ago. So I definitely think that this is one that this is a good game for Stewart. So out of those two, I like him. I like Stewart out of those two. And as far as other sleeper running backs. I like Pierre Thomas this week. I like Matt Asiata this week, as much as that feels icky to say. He's definitely the guy they like in Minnesota for whatever reason, and Miami's defense definitely is another one that has some breakdowns against the run. So those are two others I would suggest if they're out there.
Yeah, I actually like your two sleepers a lot out of those two, Stewart and Jackson. I usually hate Jackson for the reasons that Matt brought up. So I don't really love him this week, but I just think he will probably get a touchdown. I just have a feeling that game's going to be a high scoring, and they're going to have some success running the ball. The Saints' run defense has been worse in recent weeks, but you got to go Stewart here just because of a few reasons. One, Cam Newton back will help him because it does. I mean, if Newton's in that lineup, these defensive ends are going to have to play contained. They're not going to be able to crash. even if they think he's not at fully 100%, he can always run. He's Cam Newton. There's always a threat of it. The other thing is Jonathan Stewart, and as I mentioned on the show and on any podcast and anywhere I can since the preseason when I wrote an article about him, is still a really talented runner, and he's finally getting his chance to be the primary back. And all the advanced stats showed he has a ton of yards after contact. He's forced a ton of missed tackles. Like you can look it up all on Pro Football Focus if you follow that and if you have a subscription there. But I mean, this is one of the best.
If you don't, you should.
Yeah, and if you don't, you should. That's a little shameless plug. But
I'll plug it. I'll plug it for you.
There you go.
I got no connection to PFF on me.
And if you sign up for DraftKings and spend $10, you get PFF Fantasy for free the next year. So that's a little plug. Anyway, yeah, we'll keep it rolling. But the main thing here is that the Browns' run defense has really been a lot worse since Phil Taylor went out, their big nose tackle. They've had some other injuries too. They just lost their strong safety Tyrese. What's his name, dude? I'm totally blanking on his name. Who's that? Gibson.
Gibson. Yeah.
Deshaun Gibson. Sorry, I don't know why I blanked that. Deshaun Gibson, their strong safety, who's played really well this year. So they've lost a lot of key pieces, and that Browns defense will be leaky again. So I think Stewart's a good play this week.
Yeah, totally. We agree on that. We've agreed all year about that Stewart is definitely the best back in Carolina and just in general. I mean, yeah, he's still a very, very talented player. It's just unfortunate that his career has always been derailed by the injuries. But, so we like Stewart there, and there's a few others that we'll probably hit on throughout the show, so if you just keep watching, you'll get something. So moving right along to the other questions. So we've got a few here. People use the hashtag. This one comes in from @jhoover9787. He asked us, non-PPR, pick one out of Jeremy Hill, Kelvin Benjamin, and Roddy White. And he says, thanks, guys. And we say, you're welcome, Jordan. So, but anyways, what do you think out of Jeremy Hill, Kelvin Benjamin, Roddy White? Which one are you going with, Dan?
Jeez, this is a really tough question because I like all three of these guys. I'm going to go, and this is going to be surprising. I don't know if Matt's going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to go with Kelvin Benjamin. Jeremy Hill, this is non-PPR, so Jeremy Hill seems like the obvious pick because it's not PPR. But I think Hill could find he'll have a pretty good game, I think, still, but it's going to be it won't be easy against that Broncos run defense. It's a really good run defense, and they're geared up in the scheme. John Fox's scheme has always been to stop the run first. But I think I really like Benjamin this week, and I like Roddy too against the Saints, obviously. Saints have been playing better defense over the last 2 weeks, I guess it is. But at the same really just a week. But at the same time, it's just one good week. But at the same time,
against Cutler.
Against Cutler. But Roddy will probably have a good game there. But the reason I just love Benjamin is now Joe Hayden's been ruled out for the Browns, and that's their top cornerback. Without Hayden, they're down to like Buster Screen out there. They're down to guys like the rookie Gilbert who hasn't played that well. They have injuries back there, as I mentioned. Deshaun Gibson, their best safety's out. The Browns' defense is reeling right now. They're injured. They're beat up. And keep in mind, Johnny Manziel is going to give the offense the ball back a lot because he's just not playing high-quality football right now. And I don't know if that was just one game with Manziel. I don't know what to make of him. We need bigger sample size. But I think the Panthers will have a lot of offensive chances this week. Benjamin gets a beat-up secondary without their best player. He's got Cam back. He really had a great week last week, Benjamin. And he's the number one go-to guy there. So I like Benjamin a lot this week.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Benjamin too. And I would say Hill is probably my third favorite out of the options, which just seems surprising after such a strong couple of weeks by him. But Denver's run defense, I feel like is definitely going to probably shut him down a little more than Cleveland's did last week. Also, you can't discount the fact that this is an Andy Dalton and primetime game against a really good team. This could get out of hand quickly and kind of take the ball out of Hill's hands. He's not one I'm really interested in using a lot this week. And then Roddy you're absolutely right, could have a big day, but the Saints number 2 and number 3 corners are so bad. Corey White is probably the worst cornerback in the league. So that's an appealing matchup. But Benjamin is a top target in his offense, so that's what gives him the edge over Roddy. You talked about it with all the injuries in Cleveland's cornerbacks. Definitely Benjamin for me out of this group. We agree on that. We're going to keep moving right along here. TweetDeck has been letting me down. Keeps freezing up on me. today. So
That's not good.
Give me just a second here. Okay, here's our other question. These two come in from at Ball is Tim. Tim Evans. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're in some championships. Since we help you answer a lot of questions on the show.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for all the questions, Tim. You're the man.
Absolutely. So he asks us best cash game quarterbacks and best GPP quarterbacks for today's game. I don't know. How much DFS are you playing this week, and who are you playing quarterback wise in cash games and in tournaments this week, Dan?
So I've done a little bit of DFS this week, Tim. But obviously, TJ is our expert here, but I think the best value is Alex Smith at 7,400. Yes. So he's at 7,400 on FanDuel. I don't know what his DraftKings is.
56 on DraftKings.
Even better on DraftKings. They're the overreaction. The thing with Smith is he's not the greatest quarterback. We know that he doesn't have the greatest weapons, but this Steelers pass defense is really leaky, and they're going to have to throw the ball to win. I expect a couple throws to like Charles and Davis that go for extra yardage, and he'll get Kelsey going. I think he'll have some touchdowns in this one, and maybe like 250 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns, some rushing yards. I think he'll get close to like 21 to 23. Nothing more than that. You're not expecting like 25, 26, 27 or more type game. He's not going to do that. He just doesn't have the receivers, but he can definitely get close to 20 or around 20 range. So I like him. I also like a few other guys. I like Stafford this week. Stafford is kind of in the back end QB1 range. He's got the Bears defense. He's got Jimmy Clausen going for him, so he'll get the ball a lot. There's a lot of things going for Stafford. He torched this Bears defense just a few weeks ago. Golden Tate, Calvin Johnson, they don't have anyone who can cover him. They have DeMontre Hurst, who's going to try to defend Golden Tate in the slot, and he's been burned real bad lately. I watched him get burned on the Colston touchdown last week and a few other big catches. So that'll be a great play, I think. Stafford, Alex Smith. There wasn't that many great QB plays this week. Another guy I think I was going to go with, I have to double check real quick who I have in my third lineup there. I went with Tom Brady in a lot of leagues. You pay up for Brady, of course, but Brady is gonna torch this Jets defense. And the best thing about playing Brady this week is that you have Belichick on your side too in this one, because if you've watched all of the recent Jets-Patriots games since the Jets kind of built that defensive line and they've been this dominant run defense they've been for the past 3 years, where they've just been number one, is he just doesn't run the ball. He doesn't care. He'll throw little short passes. So Brady's going to be throwing a ton of passes in this one. They're not going to run the ball very much at all. So yeah, I love Brady as my third guy. Those are my 3 big QB plays for daily leagues, for tourneys and for cash games. They all kind of mesh with me. I guess for a tourney you wouldn't want to play a guy like Alex Smith just because his ceiling isn't that high.
Yeah, well, I agree. Those are several of the guys I had highlighted. Brady in tournaments and cash works good for me. Smith definitely, you love him in cash games and tournaments. Honestly, I am in a few tournament lineups just because it allows you to do so much else with your roster. I mean, if you start a tournament roster with lineup with Alex Smith and then stack him with Albert Wilson, because you don't want to stack him with Wayne Bowe. You could do Kelsey if you wanted. But Albert Wilson is a minimum price guy. He's starting to get more looks there. He had a couple nice catches last week. Just throw him in there against his bad Steelers defense. I mean, like I said, it's a tournament lineup, so you're really just shooting for, you're kind of shooting into the wind there, anyways. So why not throw Albert Wilson in there with Smith, and you can do so much else with your lineup. You can get Gronk in there for 7,000. Also, I have a lot of Aaron Rodgers in tournaments and cash. I mean, there's some good plays. Like if I pull up one of my lineups here, I mean, just some of the cheaper ones that you can get in there with Rodgers. Because I mean, Rodgers, he's the most expensive, but it's not that prohibitive, honestly. Like with some of the other salaries to pay up for Rodgers, and even stack him with Jordy Nelson, because they're gonna a pissed off Aaron Rodgers, a pissed off Packers team is just going to come in there and just light up the Bucs secondary. So, I mean, definitely go with Rodgers. Even and then you can get cheap running backs. You can get Trey Mason, Fred Jackson in there. Some of those guys, Brandon LaFell's pretty cheap. You can get some of those players in there and, still be able to put Rodgers in your lineup. So, that's one that I like a lot, a play this week. And all the ones you mentioned are good. So, several quarterbacks we like this week, Tim. So just kind of set a few lineups with those. And so our next question from Tim, he asks us, just two players I just mentioned, Fred Jackson or Trey Mason in a 10-team standard. I love both of these players this week. Honestly, I think they both have good matchups. I think they are both really good. Sorry, I just got a tweet that makes me SMH. But anyways, I'll address that here in a second. So I like both of these players. I love them both in DFS because they're cheap. But in a season-long, 10-team standard league, just because it's not PPR, I think you play Mason over Fred Jackson. You can touch on this. The Giants have given up some ground to running backs lately. I think Trey Mason's a good bet to score. So I would go Mason over Jackson, despite, like I said, I love both these players. Who would you pick?
I actually have a strong take on this one, Tim, so hopefully this will help. I would go Fred Jackson here. I'll tell you why. One, I love Fred Jackson's matchup here. Fred Jackson over the last 3 weeks has gotten close to 90% of the team's snaps, so he's one of the few workhorses left in this league. You got Forte, you've got him. You don't even have Charles anymore. You got Murray before the injury. You have like 5 guys who are doing what he's doing right now. So we start with that, and I really like that. And then also, I mean, the matchup is obvious against the Raiders. There's not much to talk about why it's such a good matchup. But remember, last week this team gave up that huge big play in the passing game to a running back, and Jackson's been used a lot in the passing game, so he'll get you cheap reception points. I really think Jackson's a really, really strong play this week. The reason I don't love Mason as much as Matt does is because last week was the first week after 3 or 4 weeks in a row of Mason getting involved in the passing game and used on passing down snaps, where the Rams went back to that snap split, and they gave Benny Cunningham half the snaps. Cunningham played in on almost all passing downs. Mason saw 0 targets in the passing game after seeing like an average of 3 or 4 for 3 straight weeks. So now it looks like Fisher's back to just like, for some odd reason, even though Mason looked good in the passing game, he's back to giving Benny Cunningham the full-time passing down role. So without the role in the passing game for Trey Mason, he's just not the same fantasy value as he was, not the same fantasy player. So at this point, with that said, to me, it's an easy go with Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't hate that call for sure. So just got a question that came in from my other podcast host, Leo, who likes to troll me about a lot of different things, despite many flaws of his own.
He does troll all the time. I see him trolling us all the time, Leo. Leo.
He's just jealous of that I have a podcast going on with another person. I think that's what it is. If I'm being honest. But you know what? He asked me this question, and as a professional, I'm going to answer it as seriously as I possibly can. So Leo asked us, should I start Cordero Patterson or Jordan Cameron? Thanks, Matt. Big fan. So if you don't know, these are 2 players I hyped a lot this season that hasn't really worked out. But you know what? If it's come down to this decision for you today, I think you got to go with Jordan Cameron. Carolina's given up a few plays to the tight end. It's kind of hard to trust Manziel, but I mean, I think that he could look for Cameron a little bit this week. Kind of some safer, easy throws. And I mean, right now you can't trust Patterson. I mean, he just doesn't get the snaps. So look, there's my serious answer to your not serious question.
I'm not gonna give a serious answer to you, Leo Howell, but I will tell you this: it's just one thing I randomly stumbled upon throughout the year from one of your tweets. Remember, you were saying you think Josh McCown should play over Glennon. Mike Glennon. I don't like that take. Okay, I think Glennon. Don't start Glennon talk with Leo. I know. I don't think Glennon's great. But he hasn't had too much of a chance there. I think he's damn better than Josh McCown, who fucking sucks. Sorry for my language. Excuse my language. But I didn't like that take. I didn't like that take. Yeah, I'm sorry, son. I didn't like that take when I read it. Leo. I know it's not. I'm just messing with you, really. I mean, both are pretty bad quarterbacks, and that's essentially what you said, is that neither really gives them a chance to win. But I don't see why you don't play the young guy who actually has a chance to become something. Maybe, who knows? I mean, he does have two great receivers to work with over a guy like McCown. So I never liked the decision by the Bucs. I was never big on the Bucs this year, Matt. A lot of people bought into their hype.
Oh. The
Yeah.
Bucs are the same team every year, and it'll probably be in the offseason. It'll be, the Bucs might be a sneaky playoff contender. Oh,
Yeah.
give me a break. Then every year, it's, the Bucs might sneak into the playoffs. Please get out of here with that take.
So that's what you get for trolling, Leo. We shit on the team you cover. So that's kind of what happens when you troll us.
You know, there's a couple things more there on this subject. Leo sent us a tweet. He said, "I troll because I love." Although all that Mike Glennon talk by you might have got you blocked on Twitter by Leo.
I know. I might have lost a follower.
And right. And Leo is he's consulting me right now on how to break up with the Bucs. So I don't know if he's going to be too offended by this. Which I told him, not many people are like me and can reach football nirvana and break up with their team. It's a very hard process to do, and you have to be kind of a cold-hearted bastard, which I can be sometimes. But anyway, we'll move along from this to a serious question we got. This one comes in from @Paul Wapnowski. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. He said, "Do we steer clear of Douglas in daily now?" And I'm thinking about using Dante Moncrief. First of all, yeah, you do steer clear from Douglas now. It's still not an awful matchup, but you just can't trust the target work there with Julio going to be, he'll be in the lineup. So it's a pretty easy correlation. You use Douglas when Julio's out. You don't when he's in. I mean, that's kind of basic. And as far as Moncrief goes, yeah, I love Moncrief this week. I mean, I don't know if we already talked about T.Y. Hilton being, either not a factor or not going to play. I don't know what Reggie Wayne's status is, but he's kind of he's not really doing much when he's in there. He might actually not play this week. I've heard that a few places. So if he doesn't, I mean, Moncrief becomes the top guy. He should get plenty of targets. I know you put that goose egg up last week, but this could be a big, big game for him. And what is not a terrible matchup. So I love Moncrief this week.
I'm with Matt in this one. I'm actually playing Moncrief in all my daily leagues, so you'll ride or die with me. I mean, I'll ride or die with you if you pick him. So at this point, like Matt said, he put up a goose egg, so it's really risky to play a guy like this. But I think that he's the most talented receiver when Hilton's not playing left, and obviously Reggie Wayne is Reggie Wayne. He's a much better receiver over the course of his career, but he's not the same player he is right now. So if he's playing at his level that he's playing at, T.Y.'s not on the field. I think, like I said, Moncrief is the best guy Luck's got out there. The one worry I have for you in this one, and it's the worry every week I have for any offensive skill position player playing the Cowboys, is that the Cowboys have these long, sustaining, clock-killing drives that just murder you when you're watching a Cowboys game and you have a quarterback, receiver, or running back on the opposite team. It's one of the most painful experiences you can ever go through because these drives are just they're just milking clock, and it's just like, sometimes they end in field goals too, and you're like, is that even worth it, Jason Garrett? But it probably is because they keep the defense off the field. So I don't think it's going to be the same type of Colts 80. They've been getting off 70, 75 type of offensive play games. I think it'll be more in the 60 range. So that's one risk, but I still think he has such a good chance of making a big play that I like Moncrief this week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Moncrief's one of my favorite plays to do DFS. Last question we have here comes from Michael Stephanie. He asks us, Jimmy Graham or Greg Olsen at tight end.
We've gotten to that point where we can ask that question. Wow.
Yeah, over Graham. I'm not personally. It's been a rough few weeks for Graham, but I can't play Olsen. He had a great week last week, but with a banged up Cam Newton, I just don't know what the hell the Panthers' offense is going to look like. So I'm going Graham over. Dan, you still with us?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there, but lost a little connection. But I'm back. So yeah, I mean, Olsen and Graham. My thing with Olsen is Olsen's had some of his best weeks this year, too. His 4 best weeks when Derek Anderson was that quarterback. Anderson really was peppering him with targets. I don't think Newton treats him the same way. Newton passes to him a lot, but not the same way. So yeah, I still got to go Graham here. It's the finals. It's your last week. Don't bench Jimmy. Hope he just does something for you. But you know what? I'll say this, Matt, and I'll say this to you, Michael Stephanie. because I own Graham this year in my main auction league. He was my highest bid on player. I will never own Jimmy Graham again after this year. It was a painful experience. I'm done with him. These injuries that he's had the past 3 years, I feel like he's not, like, I watch him play and he's not as fast as he wants. When he first got into the league out of Miami, he had some speed too. He could run the seam. Like, you watched Gronk last week run that 30-yard seam route for a touchdown. I didn't think Jimmy Graham can do that anymore. So now he's just like this, like, short space, short area guy who can catch touchdowns near the red zone, but they don't always use him because they'll throw it to the backup fullback and tight end Josh Hill because no one expects them to throw it there, and it's smart coaching. So
no, it's just because Sean Payton's a jerk.
So in my opinion, make this the last year you own Graham, but hopefully he does something for you this week.
Yeah, I definitely felt some Graham pain, but I'll probably go back to the well a couple times next year. We'll see. We'll talk about that in the offseason. And he also asked us for his flex spot, Jarvis Landry, Douglas, Stills, or Edelman, who's obviously not playing, so that one's out of the equation. And also he could use Greg Olsen, the leftover tight end, in his flex spot. So we can choose Jarvis Landry, Harry Douglas, Kenny Stills, or Greg Olsen for a flex. Who do you like best out of that?
I actually like Kenny Stills best out of that. I'm still riding the Stills bandwagon. I've been a huge Kenny Stills fan for a long time. I wrote a big article on him this offseason, and he never really got the opportunity I thought he'd get this season, but now he has it. He put together a couple stinkers maybe, but the fact of the matter is he has a really good matchup here. He's at home inside the dome. Weather won't be a factor, and he's getting a lot of short catches that I thought he'd get before the season now, little comebacks, little outs. So I think he'll actually have a good 6 for 103 game with one big 50-yard touchdown. I'm a big fan of Stills this week.
Yeah,
Matt?
right on. No, I'm with you. Normally I would like to play Greg Olsen there just because he's so safe, but like I said, it's questionable with the whole Panthers offense this week. All right, so that's all the questions we got. Dan, you and I can quickly just run through some of the games here. We don't have to spend a lot of time on every single one, obviously. But just going right off the bat here, we'll talk Ravens and Texans because this one should be pretty brief. As far as the Texans go, I'll play Arian Foster, but other than that, I'm not really interested in this whole offensive operation with Case Keenum at the helm. Although I'll say I like Case Keenum as a player, as a backup quarterback, but this is an awful situation for him. This is a completely different offense than the one he left last time he was in Houston, and also it's pretty apparent that just when teams blitz the hell out of him, he falls apart. So I think Baltimore will do plenty of that. And Hopkins is either going to be super limited or is not going to play at all, so you don't want to play him. Andre Johnson's pretty much cooked at this point. Arian Foster is the only one I want out of this offense. Do you have any different takes, or how do you feel about Baltimore's side?
Oh, first of all, I agree with you. I actually kind of like Keenum for fantasy purposes in different matchups, like when he doesn't face a strong pass rush, because he's the type of quarterback who just slings it up there, flicks it up there, and that really helps the skill position players. He takes a lot of chances. But and if he throws picks, it won't. Not like you have to play him. So, but in this one, Baltimore's pass rush is too damn good. They have the best pass rush in Pro Football Focus this year. They've been really good. Suggs is back. They got a lot of good guys working for them. A lot of rotational guys. So I don't like him in this one. I feel the same way. On the other side of things, you got to play a guy like Justin Forsett, even against. Texans' run defense hasn't been that great this year. It's been all right, but even away, I think Forsett's still getting 80% of the snaps, a ton of the carries, so I like him this week. And then other side of that, people have talked to me about Torrey Smith as a high upside play in this one. I don't really see it just because I think he's still a little injured. Those are the only guys I'll really touch on in this one.
Yeah, it's rough because there are a lot of theoretical good matchups. Like Torrey Smith should have a good matchup. Texans have been burned by number one receivers, but he's hurt. Hopkins and Keenum should have a great matchup against that Baltimore secondary, but I just don't think you can trust the situation that Keenum has been put in, and Hopkins is hurt. So it's too bad. This is a game that we should have been able to exploit, but we're not going to be able to do so. We'll talk next about Browns and Panthers. Panthers side, like I said, it's. I think you use Stewart, and I think you use Benjamin, and you could probably play Olsen if you don't have a better option. But I'm not really outside of Kelvin. I'm not really interested in any one of those guys in DFS. I just think the upside is going to be so capped with the way Newton is going to be limited. And I'm not playing Cam. I can't if I can help it. I'm not going to play Cam at all this week either. How do you feel about anything from Panthers or from the Browns side? You know, is Manziel going to bounce back this week? How do you feel about what you saw with him last time around?
So I'll first say the main guy we touched on already, Jonathan Stewart. We both love him in this matchup, and Calvin Benjamin. We both love, both big fans. But on the other side of the ball, I don't think this is a great time for Manziel to have his bounce back game because the Panthers have a really good. Their front seven starting to play much better than it has this season. Is that correct, Matt? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is very accurate.
Yeah,
and their secondary's rounding into form.
Norman's playing well. So
Ben Wickery he's looked great too. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're starting to play better defense. This is just not the greatest matchup for Johnny. I assume that Panthers will just do the exact same thing that the Bengals did and just kind of all-out blitz type crowd the line versus Johnny. That's how you have to play him right now because he's so small. It's how the best defenses coordinators play Russell Wilson as well. If you've noticed, that's how he's really struggled. So that's my take on Johnny. I don't like the Cleveland offense based on that. I think Johnny will struggle again and take down the whole offense.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Manziel bouncing back a little bit. I just think that the whole operation was just kind of sunk last week. I mean, this is brutal. Like nobody had confidence in what was going on, and just the way they kind of set things up for Manziel, I didn't really like it. And he looked bad too, so a lot of it's on him. But more than likely, you're right. The Panthers' defense, I think, is going to rule this day. They've been playing a lot better lately. Anyways, I don't want to talk anymore about Panthers, so move right along. Lions and Bears. This is another one. I mean, I think you still play Forte. I think you're probably going to be okay playing Jeffrey just because there's no Brandon Marshall. But if you have better options, definitely look to them. Because I mean, Clausen could definitely. This is another one that he could just sink this whole operation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a scenario where Mark Trestman just he benches Jay Cutler to prove he is in fact the quarterback whisperer, and Jimmy Clausen has a good day, and I have to like I said, sail out into the middle of the ocean and shoot a hole in the boat. So there is that possible scenario, but I don't think you want to bank on that. More than likely, Detroit is going to just beat the hell out of the Bears, and Clausen's going to not have a good day.
Yeah, I don't see him doing it this week against the Detroit defense, even though they won't be without Fairley, but they haven't been without him for the past few weeks. But on the other side of the ball, I actually really like Golden Tate this week. A lot of people are on Calvin Johnson, so it's a nice contrarian play to stack Stafford with Golden Tate in your dailies. So that's one of my favorite stacks this week because Golden Tate's going to get a lot of DeMontre Hurst in the slot. The Bears slot corner is just really bad right now, one of the worst slot corners in the league. He's also going to be involved in some wide receiver bubble screens. I think he'll get some good involvement in the passing game. So I think the Bears are going to have to try something different than what they tried on Thanksgiving to stop Calvin Johnson. You just can't let exactly what happened beat you 2 times in a row. I don't see many defenses being coordinators doing that. So I'm big on Tate this week there. And then I will say this, Matt. I almost lost my semifinals because you and TJ were so adamant on playing Joique Bell over Jeremy Hill last week, and I changed it at the last minute. So I'm still a little angry at you both about that, but not too angry because I respect it. And Bell looked pretty good as well last week. Bell put together a 13-point game, put together another 20. He's had back-to-back 20-pluses before that. So I kind of like Joique Bell in this one, too. I'm not going to play him personally over Jeremy Hill just because I can't, but I still think that this could end up reversing on me, and Bell could have the better game. Because Bell is now the true number 1 there.
Yeah.
And he's finally getting involved in the passing game, which is huge because he racks up those PPR points. So I would confidently play Joique this week. I really would.
Yeah, I love Joique this week. I would definitely play him over Hill again.
Oh, God, you do it again? I can't do it. I can't do it.
The matchup is just too good. But anyways, I love that. Oh, I understand. I love that Golden Tate call by you. Also, another note, Bears side, I'm just seeing Adam Schefter tweet that Kyle Long is not going to be playing today, and that should just mean
that's brutal for the Bears.
Yeah, that should just mean even more awfulness for the Bears, and hopefully I don't have to go soul searching after a good Jimmy Clausen day. That would be nice for everybody. Next game, this one's pretty easy too. Packers and Bucks. Fire up all your Packers. I mean, I don't even hate putting Rodgers, Lacey, and Jordy Nelson into the same lineup. Because you could easily go, and like that's sometimes it's hard to think like you could stack things that way, but it's so easy to think like, okay, Rodgers and Nelson throw a few touchdowns, and then Eddie Lacy comes in, salts the game away. I mean, the Bucs are they're gonna go down and go down hard. Are you playing any Bucs this week?
I think at this point, Evans is a must-play just based on his role in the red zone and what he's been able to do. And I do think Vince Jackson started to finally get involved in the passing game, but I agree with you, Matt. I think that most of that it'll be mostly Packers-dominated game, something like 45 minutes of time of possession, that high type thing. So, yeah, I really don't love playing Bucs for that reason.
Yeah, totally. Mike Evans is the only guy that I would think about playing. So Vikings-Dolphins. Next game on the schedule. Talked about Asiata earlier. This is a good matchup for him, and I mean he's not a good football player. He's not a good running back, but he gets a ton of volume, and that Miami defense has given up some big plays on the ground. They could easily have a few breakdowns, and this could be one of those Asiata 3-touchdown awful games that we always see, and can be so tilting. So I would put him in a few lineups. And then, as far as the rest of Minnesota's team, I don't want to play Bridgewater in this matchup, despite the fact he's looked a little better the last couple of weeks. Ceiling is still pretty limited there. And then Charles Johnson I love Charles Johnson. Love what we've seen from him this year. He's definitely like the top weapon on the offense, but this is a bad matchup for him. So he's one that I'd rather not play this week.
Yeah, I'd rather not play Johnson too. Again, what you said is pretty accurate there, especially if Grimes gets slotted up with him for some of the plays. On the other side of things, I think Wallace can actually have another good game. I think Desmond Trufant, who's the Vikings' best corner, he may get matched up a lot more than we'd think with Jarvis Landry, especially when Landry kicks to the outside. But even if he does guard Wallace for a majority of the snaps, he's really he's a cornerback who does better with more of the physical, bigger receivers than like the fast, speedy, quick guys like Wallace. So I think Wallace can get over the top on him. And the Vikings haven't been too bad in deep pass coverage, but they've had some really big lapses. You saw it against the Packers along a few weeks in their first matchup. You've seen it in other games as well. So I think Wallace is not a bad play this week.
Yeah, that's not a bad call. And so next game we'll talk about Chiefs Steelers. We already talked about
big one.
Yeah, this there's a lot of it's kind of fairly obvious. There's no one really Chiefs side. I like Albert Wilson. I already mentioned that. He's a minimum price guy. I don't think you're going to get this. It's not quite the same like no brainer as Marcus Wilson was last week, but he's a minimum price guy who I think could exceed that value and allow you to do a lot of other stuff with your DFS lineups. And Alex Smith, I mean, such a safe floor in a really good matchup, and I think he could have enough value to kind of be a tournament type quarterback. And obviously, I love Jamal. I love Kelsey. Kelsey finally looks like he's getting enough action on a regular basis, and this should be a big game for him. Steelers' defense is just so bad, man. So, I mean, you can fire up Smith, Kelsey, and Charles with confidence. And I don't hate throwing a chip on Albert Wilson. Probably would not do it with Dwayne Bowe, though, who missed a few practices this week or hasn't been 100%. So, yeah. So what do you think about the Steelers side?
My main take on this game is that I would fire up and pay all that DFS money for Le'Veon Bell this week. A lot of people are off Bell this week. They just look at the Chiefs and assume that this is a bad matchup. It's not. The Chiefs' run defense was a top 5 run defense on Pro Football Focus last season. They're a bottom 5 run defense this season, and it's not. It's clear and obvious why. It's because they've lost Eric Berry, their strong safety. They've lost their best run-stopping linebacker, Derek Johnson. They've lost Tyson Jackson, who was a real big cog in the middle of that defensive line. Left defensive end on that defensive line. So they've lost 3 key impact defenders against the run this year. They're not the same team that they were last year, and they're one of the worst in the league at stopping the run. Tavius Murray averaged 4.9, even though the Raiders decided not to give him the ball much last week. Guys have been churning yardage, rushing yardage against the Chiefs. So I really love Le'Veon Bell this week. I'm buying him in dailies. I don't care how much it costs.
Yeah, I mean definitely. it's pretty cost prohibitive, but at least it's still under 10,000.
Yeah.
That's always a rough one to try to put in your lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, I lost my page here. Sorry. Next game talk about is Patriots Jets again. Gronk. Like he's $7,000 on DraftKings. Like, are you kidding me? That's so cheap for what you're going to get out of him. The Jets have given up so many touchdowns to tight ends this year. I know at one point they were leading the league. I don't know if that's still the case, but they've been torched by tight ends. They can't defend them. And it's Gronk, man. I mean, yeah, with no Edelman, I think this is a big Gronk game. LaFell, you can definitely fire up as well. I don't hate starting him. As far as receivers go, he should see the most targets. And there could definitely be some weird Belichick shit going on in this game, and Amendola could have like I know when I was talking about this with Mike Clay the other day, he said, I could see 13 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown for Danny Amendola, and I responded back. I said, oh my God, I feel like I need to take a shower after reading that. But yeah. So anyways, I think that this could be a game where you see a little bit of those guys. But you want to fire up your Patriots for sure. I'm none of the running backs though. I'm done chasing the Vereen game, even though I know there's been some talk of that this week. And there's no LeGarrette Blount, so maybe Jonas Gray. I don't know, but I definitely think it's the passing game weapons this week for New England.
Yeah, this is the one week I would play Shane Vereen, I'll say, because a buddy of mine asked me this question last time these two teams matched up, and I said to him, it seems like every single time the Jets play the Patriots, Shane Vereen takes a wheel route to the house. And like clockwork, he took a wheel route to the house in their first matchup. And he scored so many receiving touchdowns versus the Jets. As I mentioned earlier, I think the Patriots will pass the ball on almost every snap this week. That's their game plan against the Jets. Belichick doesn't fuck around. I did it again. Dropping an F-bomb. Damn, these are the first two ever on the show, and I did them both this week. That's messed up.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know if that's necessarily true either. But I actually will take a contrary. And first of all, another interesting thing to look for on the other side of the ball, since we're not going to talk too much Jets, is can Eric Decker repeat his strong performance? I had him going in the league last week for some odd reason, and he was pretty damn good. I was still pretty happy about that. The other thing is, I'll go a little contrarian against you, Matt. I'm not big on Gronk this week. I'll tell you why. Because I think that Rex Ryan will actually devise a game plan with Edelman out of the lineup, devise a game plan to shut down Gronk and kind of just like bracket coverage him. I've seen him do it with Jimmy Graham before in the past and Tony Gonzalez with the Falcons as recent as last year. So I think he'll kind of try to defend Gronk and make them Patriots beat them in other ways. So I'm actually against Gronk this week. For my dailies and and obviously you play him in season. That's just stupid to say anything else. But yeah, so we'll see who's right on that, Matt, because we both have strong opinions on Gronk this week. So we'll find out next week if I'm an idiot or if you were just wrong, because you won't be an idiot no matter what, Matt.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. And speaking of very sweet, the Sportable account just tweeted us using the hot takes hashtag. Nice. It said it's okay, swearing is allowed. Well, that's fucking great. I'm glad that we're not. I'm glad that we're not a part of Sensibilities Twitter here on Sportable. Always keeping things real. All right, so next game is one we've kind of already talked about a lot, so we don't have to spend a ton of time here. Is Falcons and Saints. I will say JJ Zacharyson said on Fantasy Game Plan this week that he likes Pierre Thomas, and I like that call too. That's the one, I mean, kind of non-obvious one that I would go with this week at a cheap DFS price.
I'm with you 100% on Pierre. I was looking at that DFS price. I actually was able to pick him up a few weeks ago in the league when he was out, and I just had him stashed, and he'll be one of my flexes this week. In one of those writers' league we were talking about, where I just decided to make I'm in the playoffs. I don't think there's any money involved, so I don't pay too much attention. But I am going to start Thomas. I moved him in. But yeah, he should have a role this week, especially if the Falcons can score some early points. Then you're really looking at a good game for Pierre, because Ingram will get taken off the field. So yeah, aside from that, we've touched on a lot of the players already in this matchup.
Yeah, so we can move right along. Bills Raiders, another one. We've kind of mentioned the main guys. Fred Jackson, he's an easy play this week. Yeah, definitely. especially in PPR leagues. I mean, and he should get.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week for Fred Jackson. And I definitely think that Sammy Watkins could be a good play. But I'm not crazy about Watkins this week because Orton's not playing well. The targets kind of go ebb and flow with Mr. Watkins there, and no Raiders for me. I don't know if you feel any differently, but
No, I do not feel any differently there.
yeah, right on. So we keep moving. Giants, Rams. I'll let you talk about the Giants, but as far as the Rams go, I think Trey Mason's a good play this week. And again, that's about it. I mean, their wide receivers are kind of the same as ever. I think that when they get a better quarterback, some of these guys could be ready to break out. But right now, it's just a bunch of wide receiver 3s and 4s right now, fantasy wise.
Yeah, I mean, I have a different take on this. I think it's going to be a very defensive matchup. I'll touch first a little bit on why I think the Rams will do well against the Giants. Just to mention it again, they're going to get a lot of interior pressure with Aaron Donald against J.D. Walton, the Giants guards who have really struggled. It will really affect the whole game, which makes Rams defense an interesting play as well. Because, you could get some turnovers there. And on the other side of the ball, I don't love Trey Mason. I don't love this Rams offense because Giants defense has played surprisingly well over the last 2 weeks. Granted, against some idiot teams, but at the same time, Titans and the Redskins. But at the same time, they've really made some big changes up front. Jason Pierre-Paul's playing for his contract, and he's finally playing like the beast that he was 3 years ago. And it's just sad that it took him, the end of the year and realizing that he needs to play well for his contract to do it. But another key is they got DeMontre Moore and Devin Kennard. Moore's a second-year player, third-round pick. Defensive end. Every time he's on the field, he gets a sack, it seems like. It's unbelievable, his pass rush production per snap. Unfortunately, it took Tom Coughlin, Perry Fewell, and the Giants this long to get him snaps over Matthias Kiwanuka, and an injury to Matthias Kiwanuka to get him the snaps. It's just poor coaching. There's no argument, in my opinion, to be made otherwise. But now he's on the field, so that their defense is better. And Devin Kennard, the fifth-round rookie, looks like a real gem and a real find for Jerry Reese. He's had like 4 sacks in the last 3 games. He's looked really, really good, and he's played with the run really well. So I think the Rams' offense is going to struggle in this one too. I'm all hands off for the offense in this game. Besides Beckham, of course. Besides Beckham. And let me ask you this question, Matt, because somebody asked me this question the other day because they know I hate the Cowboys and the Eagles. Would you take Dez Bryant or Odell Beckham going forward?
Like fantasy or NFL?
No, NFL.
Oh. God damn.
You have to say Bryant, I guess, right?
Yeah, right.
He's bigger, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, shit. I'm not ruling it out that Beckham could be better in his career than Bryant, but just based off, we've only seen a rookie season from Beckham. I wouldn't mind. I would take Dez Bryant.
The fact that I can even consider that question makes me so happy to be a Giants fan right now and have Odell Beckham on my side.
Beckham is incredible. I mean, that's this is a bit of a meta thing, but I mean, to be able to watch a player in college and watch their film and be like, this guy is good. He's really, really good. And then see him excelling on Sundays. And I'm sure for you, in your playing for your favorite team, that's really is like an amazing experience to see a player that you really like coming out of the draft and then doing things like that catch and everything. I mean, that's incredible stuff. And
I'll say, I was big on Beckham going into the draft. He graded out as a top 15 overall player for me. So I was definitely happy, and I know you too. But people were saying the one thing that people were knocking was his college production, and he really didn't produce that well in college. He didn't score many touchdowns at all. It was insane. Yeah. If you look at how many touchdowns he have, you'll be shocked to see that he did. He scored last week. I think he matched his total for one of the seasons. But that was a big knock on him, and I'm glad that really meant nothing, and it was just kind of scheme and situation dependent for him there at LSU. So yeah, sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, LSU's offense makes it very hard to scout NFL prospects.
Correct.
But anyways, moving on to the late games, or more of the late games, I should say. Colts Cowboys, kind of another one we touched on. What are you doing with DeMarco Murray this week? Me personally, if I'm in a championship game, I don't think I can bench him if he's playing. But it's a rough situation for me. I'm not using him in any, and do not use him in DFS. It's just not. It's too risky, even in a tournament. And then the rest of the Cowboys offense. I mean, I'm fine playing Tony Romo. I'm not crazy about Dez Bryant. He'll probably be locked up with Vontae Davis a lot. I don't think we're going to see another 3 touchdowns like we did last week. So, Cowboys offense in general, I'm not falling over myself to get those guys in my lineup this week. What do you think about the Colts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not. Oh, about the Colts. Yeah, we touched on this. I love Moncrief this week. Now that T.Y. Hilton's out with the Wayne injury, we've gone over that. Kind of like their tight ends too, Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener. I hate to say it. I know Matt hates Fleener, but if you can, yeah, I know. I kind of like him this week though, because they're gonna have to do something in the passing game now that those guys are out. But I just would say, yeah, you got to play DeMarco regardless of the situation, and I think Matt hit it spot on. Dez is not a guy I'd roll out in my dailies this week because he's got Vontae Davis on him, and he's been unreal, Vontae. So, yeah, that's pretty much the entire matchup there that I'm interested in.
Yep, it'll be an interesting one to watch. Also, Colts have kind of clinched. I wonder how they're gonna, they can't really improve their seeding at all. I wonder how they're gonna approach that. Seahawks Cardinals. This is another one that's like, oh no, please don't really play anybody in this game except the defenses. Seattle's defense for sure. It's nothing really going on either offense except Marshawn Lynch that I really want a piece of in this game. How about you?
Only the other thing I say, I don't think it's a terrible play to roll out Arizona defense either.
Yeah. Okay.
They have a good game plan for Russell Wilson. They crowd the line. They blitz him. He's really small. It's hard. He's hard to. He doesn't deal that well with the edge pressure, getting right in his face. So I think they'll have a big game as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And last game on the slate, Broncos Bengals. Interesting to see if the Broncos continue to go with like this ball control offense. With Peyton Manning kind of looking. I mean, he had the flu last week. I know. Apparently, it was so bad. He was like, about to shit himself on the field. Actually, I've heard that from
weird report that I haven't heard yet.
Yeah, it was Cecil Lammey, one of the football guys' staffers who works for ESPN Denver. He was saying on the Audible, the Football Guys live show on Thursday night, he was saying, yeah, that's how bad it was. It was coming out of both ends, and Cecil was saying like when I saw him take one hit from Donald Butler or whatever, and he was like, I was really checking, like I was looking to see if he had shit his pants. That's how bad. I mean, unbelievable. But anyways, yeah. So I mean, that was definitely what some of it is he's sick and he's old and it's cold, whatever. But yeah. So I mean, I think you can still play Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think you really take those guys out of your lineup. But C.J. Anderson should have just a really, really big week. Yeah, so that's one that I like a lot.
I think the interesting thing for me to follow in this is, will Jeremy Hill continue his hot streak against a strong run defense? Because a lot of people are relying on Hill to really carry them through, me included, their finals matchups. And again, after this hangout, Matt, I'm going to take a look again at this Hill Joy thing, but it's going to be so tough for me to play the matchup here. Even though I've said I want to be a slave to the matchups, it was so painful to watch Hill put together that game last week and then just to have him on the bench. So, and I'm also that person who gets really easily swayed by having a guy in the Monday Night Football matchup, especially when my opponent doesn't. I don't know what it is. It's sad. It's not smart, but I like having someone left in that game if I can. So anyway, but that's the interesting storyline there. And can AJ Green do something against Aqib Talib and Chris Harris when he moves into the slot? I think he'll have a bad game as well. I wouldn't roll him out in daily leagues, Dalton as well. So yeah, on the other side of the ball, you touched on it, but that's my main take on the Bengals, really.
Yeah, definitely. This game could get ugly, and just so you know, the Jeremy Hill thing burned me last week. I mean, I picked Isaiah Crowell over Jeremy Hill for some stupid reason last week, and it really sunk my Millionaire Maker lineup. Could have been a lot better if I had Hill instead of Crowell. But nonetheless, we move on, and that's the end of the schedule. So that's going to be about it from us on hot takes and hot cakes. Dan, just to close out, any parting words? Any work of yours we should be checking out this week?
I'm pretty much doing the usual slate for Sportable, for PFF this week, for Fox Sports. I've mentioned it before. I don't need to go over it again. I'm not going to toot my horn too much. But I just want to say for everyone who's watched the show this year, thank you. We love the fact that you were watching. We love all the questions. I've had a really good time doing this with Matt, getting to know Matt and TJ. Obviously, Sal, thanks for putting us on this because, it's a great group, and I don't think I would have had a chance to get to know either of these two guys and anyone else who's interacted with us on the questions, the fans, and everything if we didn't do it. So I'm really glad to have been a part of this. Matt, anything from you?
Yeah, definitely echo the same statements. I don't know if we've decided whether we're going to do a Week 17 show or not. We might. So
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. I don't want to get too emotional yet, but this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again next season, just depending on what everybody's doing. And if Sal wants to fire us or not, apparently not for cursing, but who knows what we could do in the off season. Like NFL players, we could get into some trouble. But anyway, and as for me, same thing, usual slate. I just tweeted out my black and blue review article. I highlighted Trey Turner, Mike Remmers, and Ben Wickery. So interesting things there. And reception perception, I featured Jeremy Macklin this week, who played yesterday. Was really that was fun. That was an interesting one to look at because he did not come out as well as you would expect for a guy who's been super productive. So definitely that's worth checking out. But other than that, yeah, definitely keep up with Sportable. So many great things happening there, especially DFS wise. So hopefully we'll talk to you all again next week. But for Dan. I'm Matt, and thanks for tuning in for another week with us. Good luck, everyone.